Let's start with a look at the markets. Now, global shares gained today as a retreat in U.S. Treasury yields fueled demand for riskier assets and weakened the dollar. MSCI's emerging market stock index climbed 1.6% on the day as optimism around COVID-19 vaccine rollouts and a stimulus package in the United States continues to help global economic recovery and boost sentiment on markets. Now, on the continent, most key markets were down today. South Africa's JSE was dragged down by resources, which fell 1.56% on the day, as well as financials. Now, also coming up on the show, Tanzania's economic growth is seen climbing up to 5.3% this year. And China lays out plans for the country's annual political season. And South Africa to introduce coding and robotics in public schools. Well, we start off today's show in Tanzania, where the World Bank sees economic growth of up to 5.3% in 2021 as a rollout of COVID-19 vaccines invigorates global economic activity. Now, last year, growth fell to 2% from 5.8% in 2019 as the COVID-19 pandemic battered sectors such as tourism, which of course is a key source of revenues and jobs. The World Bank has, however, noted that the country's sustained economic expansion in recent years has supported improvements in overall living standards. It has called for a concerted effort to restore the economy's growth momentum while expanding access to economic opportunities. Well, let's discuss Tanzania's economic outlook further with William Battle. He is the World Bank's lead country economist and program leader for Tanzania, Malawi, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. Great to have you with us today on the show, Mr. Battle. Now, of course, while Tanzania's growth prospects remain strong, we hear experts seeming to feel that the country may lag behind its peers in terms of economic recovery post-COVID-19. Do you agree with this? And certainly, what are the greatest risks to the country's growth this year that you see?
Thanks very much for the question. Thanks for having me on the program and the opportunity to talk about our latest report on Tanzania. On this question, I'd say an overall point I'd make from the beginning is just the large amount of uncertainty in the near term that we have, not just for Tanzania, but across the globe. The COVID-19 pandemic, which has been the main factor that slowed growth in 2020, it's far from over. So we have a lot of uncertainty there. But that said, we don't see Tanzania as really lagging behind many countries in the recovery for 2021. For example, when we look at the latest picture that the World Bank has across the region, we see that it's outperforming in the sense that the overall sub-Saharan African growth rate is expected to be 3.7% in 2020. That's our latest estimate, with a recovery to only 2.7% in 2021. Our latest report that you're mentioning shows that Tanzania, from our latest information, is faring a bit better. It did not experience a recession in 2020. This means that you may not also see the base effect growth rates in 2021, for example, in comparison to some other countries that did experience a recession, such as South Africa, Nigeria, some of the big powerhouses on the continent. So that the growth rate for Tanzania won't have that as big a rebound, but we see quite steady improvement. You mentioned what we see for the picture for 2021, somewhere in the range between 3 and this 5.3%. This is quite a large range, but a product of the uncertainty that I mentioned. And if we look at the rest of East Africa, Tanzania will continue to be one of the top 3 performers in terms of high growth and low volatility. And lastly, let me just mention, you asked about the risks and the way we see the downside risks for Tanzania going forward in the near term. They're largely on the external side. So it takes longer to get the pandemic under control globally. That means lower global demand, and this will impact negatively through the external channel. Tourism is one of the big key exports as a service export for Tanzania. It declined by about 50% last year. So it's really significant impact. We did a survey of tour operators late last year, and a lot of them don't expect a really strong recovery, at least in the first half of this year. So it's a really guarded position on that. So these external risks are significant going forward. There are domestic risks. They depend on the policy stance that the authorities are going to take. We see a lot of room for action in terms of social protection for the vulnerable, supporting the small and medium enterprises through these difficult times, especially in the most affected sectors. And just overall, a loud message in our report is in terms of making strides in terms of the private sector investment, climate, and the overall business environment in Tanzania.
And interesting that you also point to Tanzania's digital economy as a key area that will, of course, support policy responses to the COVID-19 crisis and boost a recovery going forward. What progress have you seen in the ICT sector that you believe the country can build on?
So it's a very good point. We emphasize it in our report, and we see this as really key and fundamental going forward. I think the COVID pandemic has really focused minds across the globe in terms of leveraging digital technologies and the importance of doing that. I think in Tanzania specifically, on the positive side, we see a vibrant and competitive mobile communications sector. They've got 3 submarine cables that connect the country and its large interior to the wider world. They're regular users in Tanzania of mobile money. It's one of the success stories, I think, in the region and beyond. So this provides a really strong foundation in terms of the positives going forward, strong foundations for the development of a digital economy. But let me just mention, certainly on the challenges side, there are some. So in terms of the low volume data services, that need to be made more affordable. So affordability of services and broadband is certainly important. I mentioned the interior of the country, the large infrastructure is there, but there are certainly gaps in rural areas. And for attracting investment in carrier neutral data centers, we note this in facilitating digital trade as key challenges in this area. So just to note, we're exploring with government their interest in a digital Tanzania investment through the concessional arm of the World Bank to address some of these challenges. So we see a positive path forward there.
Right. Well, we do have to leave it there, Mr. Battle. Thank you so much for your insights. That, of course, is William Battle. He's a lead country economist and program leader for Tanzania and other nations in the region. Well, let's stay in the country. As the World Bank points to Tanzania's digital economy as a key area, urban shoppers in the country are moving away from more traditional forms of retail buying and opting for contact-free and digital transactions. Now, a study published by MasterCard shows that 72% of Tanzanians have been spending more money online since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. Here's CGTN's Daniel Kijo with more.
Piki is Tanzania's leading e-commerce platform. The food delivery app was founded in 2019 and is part of the country's recent e-commerce market boom. It handles over 1,000 orders a day, employs 100 riders, and operates in 3 regions.
A lot of customers trust Piki. They order every day. They order maybe 3 times a day because we are reliable, we are fast, and we meet those expectations that they have.
Jumia, Africa's leading online retailer, known as the Amazon of Africa, shut down its operations in Tanzania in November of 2019. It claimed the country's e-commerce market was too small. Ibrahim Dunguru, a digital marketing expert, says a lot has changed since Jumia left Tanzania's e-commerce rat race.
Ilikuwa ni ngumu kwa sababu watu wengi walikuwa hawezi kutumia email.
It used to be hard because people didn't know how to use emails, navigate websites, etc. But now it's easy because a person can just download an app or get on social media like Instagram and Facebook. So what has helped create usage is social media. These are easier to use.
Since COVID-19 hit Tanzania and limited movement, multiple e-commerce platforms have sprung up. Payment for online purchases is made using mobile money, removing the need for physical shopping. With its 27 million internet users, Tanzania is the fourth largest e-commerce consumer base in Africa, second only to Kenya. And with a population of 60 million, there's lots of room for growth. With COVID-19, the role e-commerce platform played in the lives of local businesses changed almost overnight. Emmanuel says the potential for growth is massive.
The plan for Piki is to become a super app where most of the services that customer needs on a daily basis will be available. So beyond food, beyond maybe electronic delivery, so things like services and those kind of things will also be available. Services, transportation, and those kind of services.
Cash on delivery remains Tanzania's preferred method of payment. Experts say it's still unclear how consumer behavior will change in the country. Daniel Kijo, CGTN, Dar es Salaam.
And on that note, let's take a look at our corporate headlines today. The board of Nigeria's Dangote Sugar Refinery has proposed a sum of $47.7 million as the final dividend for shareholders for the period ending 31st December 2020. Now, the proposed dividend is 36.36% higher than the final dividend of 1.1 naira per share, which the sugar company paid its shareholders in 2019. And still in Nigeria, the Power Ministry will work with the Egyptian government on its deal with Siemens AG to revamp Nigeria's power grid. Now, both countries will collaborate on renewable energy and improving other sectors in Africa's most populous nation. Meanwhile, Kenya Power has unveiled plans to roll out electric vehicle charging points as it eyes new revenue streams. The country has joined the global push to promote the use of electric vehicles and reduce reliance on petrol and diesel. And finally, Samsung is looking at 4 sites in the US for a new $17 billion chip planned. The tech giant is considering 2 sites in Arizona and another one in New York, in addition to Austin, Texas. The new plant will produce devices for Samsung's chip contract manufacturing business, with 1,800 new jobs promised. The establishment could also attract tax reductions of almost $1.5 billion over 20 years from Travis County in Texas and the city of Austin. And that's a look at our corporate headlines. Well, we are taking a short break now, still coming up on the show. Some of South Africa's busiest border posts will soon get a facelift. And side hustles are fast becoming a source for additional income in Nigeria.
The world economy as we know it is about to change. Global business reports highlight emerging markets, developing countries, and dynamic sectors worldwide. We feature top analysts and newsmakers to provide perspectives on every facet of business. From an on-the-ground perspective, we provide you with balanced and objective assessments. Fast, sharp, and insightful. Global Business, only on CGTN.
Every story starts out like this.
Okay. We'll head up now.
But beyond the rush of the numbers, there's always a more fundamental question. What happened? Who has been affected? When market-moving decisions are made, who's responsible and why?
Let's get some reaction on ground. Joining us in Johannesburg is Sutra Nairobi. Hello, Nairobi.
This is how all stories begin. See how they end. Only on Global Business.
There's more to this place than just glorious landscapes. There's more to it than just, say, Table Mountain or glorious, endless salt flats. There's more to it than countries that are home to some of the deepest minds in the world. there is so much more to this place, even if it is home to some of the finest diamonds on the planet. It is the sheer diversity of the people who call Southern Africa home, and the relentless drive to make it a better place that make it so special. And we know that because this too is home. No one knows Southern Africa like we do. CGTN, see the difference.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
Welcome back. Let's head to Tunisia now. The European Bank for Reconstruction and Development has agreed to provide $361 million in financing to help stabilize the country's state-owned power utility. Now, the electricity provider has in recent years struggled to meet peak summer power demand. It has also failed to keep up with the country's annual 5% growth in power consumption. Here's Hainan with the details.
Authorities in the North African state say the package consists of two facilities. The first is an immediate €100 million emergency stabilization facility under the EBRD's Vital Infrastructure Support Program. The second facility, of up to €200 million, will help refinance Société Tunisienne de l'Électricité et du Gaz short and medium-term liabilities.
This financing is important for improving the company's performance and implementing its reform plan. The new reform roadmap would anchor the shift towards a more sustainable and efficiently run company.
The National Observatory of Energy and Mines has revealed that the production of electricity from renewable energy sources recorded a 3% growth in 2020 compared to 2019. Tunisia is scaling plans to boost its renewable energy production.
The state is offering incentives to industries to generate electricity for renewable energies in order to meet peak electricity demand. Given the steadily falling prices of photovoltaic systems, there is now an environmentally friendly and economical alternative for generating electricity.
Experts at the Tunisian Cluster for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency say authorities aim to increase the use of renewable energy in the energy mix by 30%.
Tunisia has developed an ambitious action plan to expand renewable energy use and energy efficiency by 2030. We need to step up the public-private partnership in energy and to reinforce the capabilities of all stakeholders.
The European Bank for Reconstruction and Development's financing package will be accompanied by a detailed roadmap for reform and energy sustainability. It aims to improve the company's corporate and climate governance. According to the Energy Department, the European Union is providing an investment grant of €20 million to finance the implementation of an enterprise resource planning system. Authorities say this project is a necessary step towards the modernization of Société Tunisienne de l'Électricité et du Gaz, STEG. Adnan Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
Meanwhile, South Africa has announced a massive infrastructure upgrade at its main borders. There's over 50 land ports across the nation, but only a handful of the busiest border posts will be revamped for now. Here's CGTN's Sumitra Naidu with the details.
The Beitbridge border with Zimbabwe will be the first to get upgraded. The border post was built back in 1929 and was last upgraded in 1995. The border is infamous for long queues and gridlocks. The disrepairs also led to illegal migration.
Infrastructure development should be a priority for the government, and we agree. In fact, capital spending is the fastest growing component of non-interest spending. The spending is complemented by the Infrastructure Fund. Over the next 3 years, the Development Bank of Southern Africa will package blended finance mega projects of at least 200 billion rand. Government has committed 10 billion rand over the next 3 years in this regard.
The upgrades are meant to redesign the ports to ease truck and freight congestion. A new border management authority has been appointed to oversee the development and also improve efficiencies across the country's borders.
There's always an opportunity to do things differently, to invest on a bigger scale, infrastructure-wise, to look at maybe even going more deeper into renewable energy, into the green space, just to think differently around our economy and the things and the sectors that have worked and the ones that really need to be changed.
But it's not only about trade. Thousands of people move through these borders daily. Humanitarian needs will also be addressed.
Women are involved in like 75% of economic activity and cross-border trade. So now, with the opportunity that the AfCFTA brings, with them being able to trade on a bigger scale with more countries, we're going to have to consider the typical woman selling, let's say, chitenges, which is the traditional African clothes on the side of the road. How do you then make it easy for her to move in between borders? And that necessarily maybe means not requiring a visa for her. Like bigger businesses can easily obtain a visa and move around countries fairly easily. But for someone who's working for themselves and they really want to wake up, maybe get to the next country within that day and come back maybe within that same day.
The infrastructure upgrade will take about 5 years to complete, paving the way for a more efficient system to ensure the smoother movement of people and trade. Sumitra Naidu, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
And staying in South Africa, miners who worked in 82 South African gold mines between 1965 and 2019 and contracted silicosis or tuberculosis will finally be able to claim compensation. Now, beneficiaries will be paid from a trust created after a class action lawsuit against 6 South African gold mining companies, which resulted in a $350 million settlement. The companies that were party to the settlement agreement are African Rainbow Minerals, Anglo American, Anglo Gold Ashanti, Goldfields, Harmony, and Sibanye Stillwater. Angela Coppola brings us the latest.
The Tsiamisu Trust started building its infrastructure and capacity in 2020, more than a year after the settlement was announced. A CEO was appointed in October.
The trust deed is extremely prescriptive. It's very complicated, and we need to make sure that we adhere to all of the stipulations. Now, this entails setting up an infrastructure from a technology perspective, from a people, process, service provider perspective right across South Africa, as well as into our neighboring countries. So to date, we've managed to set up 50 facilities to be able to lodge claims. We are doing benefit medical examinations, which we are ramping up very quickly. We are fielding between 500 and 800 calls a day. So the progress has been very significant.
Claimants have 8 steps to go through before their claim is considered and either accepted or rejected. It could take up to 6 months for confirmation either way.
What we managed to do before the end of last year is test our processes with a pilot program where we had a look at potential eligible claimants. And to test our process, we actually successfully managed to put 7 people through the entire process and pay them out before the end of last year.
Cotton says the trust paid out $116 to a test group and planned to start full-scale rollout at the end of April. The participating mines have agreed to pay a capped administrative fee and a benefit contribution budget, which is uncapped.
The settling companies will pay as many eligible claimants as we are able to find according to the 10 classes of the trust deed over the life cycle of the trust. So to date, only a portion of the benefits contributions have been paid over, and these payments take place in tranches.
Unfortunately, there are opportunists who have heard about the trust and are preying on ex-miners and their families, offering to collect claims on the miners' behalf for a small fee.
As soon as there is money available, people come out of the woodwork in terms of how they can scam and defraud these poor people out of money. The efforts are concentrated at the moment in Lesotho and in the Eastern Cape. We've also seen some activity in the Free State.
A massive campaign is underway to warn people about the scams and also to notify ex-miners about the trust and how it can help them and their families. It's been a long time coming, but the trust is now up and running, and they've done those test runs to see that the process actually works. It's now time to process the other thousands of claims that are waiting. I'm Angelo Coppola for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Well, let's shift gears now to Nigeria, where getting a side hustle is gaining traction in the country. People are venturing outside their regular jobs to get more money as the cost of living shoots up. From Abuja, here's CGTN's Kelechi Mekalam with more.
Nsushima Agwabi works as a customer service assistant in one of the banks in Nigeria's capital, Abuja. Her 6-year-old career earns her a monthly income of about $150. It's not enough to pay her bills. In a bid to supplement her income, she set up an oil perfume business called Nshima Scents. Now she rakes in nearly twice her monthly salary from the side business.
Let me start selling these perfumes too, since they are easy to carry. I can carry them in my bag to work, and I can advertise it anywhere. I can stop anybody on the road to buy my perfume. So I started selling. The salary is not enough. So this has really helped. You know, in Nigeria, before the salary comes in, you've spent it. But this business has really helped me.
But combining her full-time job with her side hustle hasn't been a walk in the park.
I must confess, it's not easy. You know, I have to wake up very early in the morning, prepare for work. Then when I come back, that's when my business starts. My business doesn't clash with my job. Even if I want to sell to the staff, it's when it's after work. I don't sell during office hours.
The National Bureau of Statistics reports that 21.7 million Nigerians are unemployed and another 28.6% are underemployed. Like Nsushima, millions of employed Nigerian youths engage in various forms of side hustles to augment their regular income. The economic climate has been unfavorable, as minimum wage is pegged at $70 monthly.
The economic reality is very grim, and day by day inflation is eating into the standard of living of individuals in Nigeria, while the employers, either governments or the private sector, are not doing anything to increase the salaries of employed Nigerians. In the reality that we found ourselves, it will be difficult for us to discourage the issue of side hustling. However, side hustling must not be done in such a way that it affects the current employment of that person.
While side hustle may be boosting the income of citizens, experts warn that it could lead to divided focus and burnout from overworking. But many, like Nsushima, aren't taking chances. They're securing other alternatives which they can fall back on upon retirement. Kelechi Emekalam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
You're watching Global Business Africa. Let's take a quick break now, but still coming up on the show. China lays out plans for the country's annual political season. And could Miami take over Silicon Valley as the next global tech hub? Find out after the short break.
This has taken me completely out of my depth, but at the same time it's exciting. It's new, it's different, it's a challenge.
It's really exciting.
No one again began holding guns. Machine guns from police forces towards the protesters.
Were you worried about your life at that particular time?
Not at all.
Thank you very much for your time. What is your assessment of the state of the continent today?
Africa has the potential to power itself.
Excuse me.
How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what you make happen for yourself? If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are these stories that need to be told. Africa Live. Find your voice.
Accra is my kind of city. That's because when I'm here, I feel like I'm back home in Lagos or Abidjan, which are two of the major cities I grew up in.
Business in Africa is high risk.
After about a decade covering business news on the continent, I've learned it's all about the high risk, but also the high returns and the high energy. You simply have to adjust in order to keep pace. When I started out as a journalist, my dream was to open people's minds to the different perspectives. From the CEO in the boardroom to the trader out in the street, we all have different stories. From Accra to Addis Ababa, from Cairo to Cape Town. And I wouldn't have it any other way. Here at CGTN, we realize that Africa is on the move, and it's moving fast, but we're moving right along with it. I'm Uche Okoronkwo, and I'm a business anchor and reporter at CGTN.
I try to not let it affect me, but there are days when it does. I'm a human being, and to see patients in a hospital bed and their family members are not there, there's no one there to hold their hand, that human touch, you know?
I just hope everyone can remember that the situation is not permanent and that everything will get better eventually.
Just about 1:30, let's recap today's top headlines. The World Bank is preparing emergency financing, which is targeting about 30 African nations. This will help in accessing COVID-19 vaccines. Now, this comes as the continent scrambles to secure doses and start immunizing their populations. So far, only a handful of African governments have launched mass vaccination campaigns, whereas some countries in wealthier parts of the world have already administered millions of doses. And Rwanda is the latest African nation to receive COVID-19 vaccines from the COVAX sharing program. Up to 240,000 Oxford AstraZeneca doses arrived on Wednesday morning in the capital city of Kigali. Now, more than 100,000 doses of the Pfizer vaccine are expected soon from the same program. The government says over 170,000 people are targeted in the upcoming vaccine campaign. And British Prime Minister Boris Johnson says the country will do what it can in talks with the European Union to improve the functioning of the Northern Ireland Protocol. The protocol involves rules post-Brexit to streamline goods inspections between Northern Ireland, which is no longer part of the EU, and Ireland. Well, Britain also adds that it will give supermarkets and suppliers more time to adapt to the protocol. And that's a recap of today's top headlines. Well, let's turn to Beijing now, where China's top political advisory body, the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, has laid out plans for the country's annual political season. The spokesperson of the CPPCC met the press on Wednesday, covering everything from international cooperation to Hong Kong. Zhao Bing has the report.
CPPCC spokesperson Guo Weiming confirmed the agenda for this year's two sessions as he spoke to the press in Beijing on Wednesday.
The conference will start on Thursday and is set to conclude on March 10th. That's 6.5 days. Organizers learned their lessons from last year when epidemic prevention requirements were also in place and greater levels of efficiency were achieved.
As an issue of both national and global concern, COVID-19 vaccinations were high on the agenda in the news conference.
By the end of February, China had administered over 52 million doses. China has strictly carried out high technical standards while quickly producing its vaccines, meeting WHO standards. By the end of February, China had provided vaccine assistance to 69 countries and 2 international organizations. China's international vaccine cooperation has nothing to do with diplomacy, but is an example of the concept of building a community of shared future.
When asked about the recent moves by Beijing to make sure patriots govern Hong Kong, Guo said it's a core and fundamental part of the one country, two systems policy.
Enacting the Hong Kong national security law and improving the electoral system of the special administrative region is all about upholding one country, two systems, and ensuring that the policy progresses steadily. The CPPCC will firmly support patriots governing Hong Kong.
As for whether China's international image has taken a hit over the past year, the spokesperson said there's been a lack of understanding from hostile politicians in some quarters. He said it would be better if China's international partners got to know the country through experience rather than hearsay. Cao Bing, CGTN, Beijing.
Now, there are over 20 free trade areas in China, but one that differs from the rest is Hainan province. It is the largest of its kind and the only one named a free trade port. Now, a draft law tailored for Hainan was announced earlier this year, and CGTN reporter He Weiwei talks to a national lawmaker from Hainan to explore what this legislation means for China.
Hainan, a tropical island off the south of China, is now exploring the path to unprecedented opening up. The master plan was released in June 2020, and just 7 months after that, a tailored draft law opened for public opinion.
A free trade port demonstrates the highest level of opening up. This is the first of its kind in the Chinese mainland. It's brand new. The draft law has clear stipulations on trade, investment, taxation, environmental protection, and other sectors, which is extremely important in constructing a free trade port.
This draft law has 14 pages. Behind it are China's efforts to build the largest ever free trade area. As the first article says, China aims to introduce deeper reforms and to open up its economy further. Despite not ranking high in terms of GDP, Hainan was among the top 10 provinces in China last year for utilized foreign capital, hitting $3 billion. Fu attends new project ceremonies every month, either signing or starting construction. Fu says the draft law, when passed, will make every business in Hainan predictable.
Predictable means a businessman knows what can and cannot be done, how long it will take, and which government body is taking charge. I believe this draft law is the biggest guarantee for a transparent business environment in Hainan.
International free trade ports, such as Hong Kong and Singapore, have long had similar legislation, creating a world-class business environment. That is what China wants to do in Hainan. The draft law will also grant more extensive authority to the local government.
It's evident in the draft law what can be approved by the Hainan provincial government on its own. That means what couldn't happen in the past will be possible in the future.
Hainan has long been known as China's Hawaii, bringing in tourists from all over the world. But thanks to this new draft law,
Before long, China's largest island will prove its trade potential. He Weiwei, CGTN, Hainan.
Now in the U.S., Miami leaders have spent much of the last decade trying to sell the city as the country's next global tech hub. And there are real signs it might be happening. Well, CGTN's Nitza Soledad Perez has more on the trend of Silicon Valley executives making the cross-country move.
Can Miami shake up its party central reputation and become the next hot tech scene in the U.S.? New buzz started late last year with a simple tweet from Delian Zebulger, a venture capitalist at Founders Fund, one of the most influential firms in tech and San Francisco-based. Zebulger wrote, "Okay guys, hear me out. What if we move Silicon Valley to Miami?" Miami Mayor Francis Suarez did not waste any time. His response, "How can I help?" Suarez's tweet went viral, and Founders Fund, with its $6 billion capital fund, now says it's moving many of its executives to Miami. This venture capitalists have a diverse investing portfolio, including companies like SpaceX, Airbnb, and Facebook. At least 2 of the firm's founding fathers have recently bought mansions in Miami Beach.
We're here to facilitate and to help you be successful.
The Twitter buzz shifted to in-person promotion as Suarez hosted Cafecito Talk, Spanish for coffee talk sessions, in his offices, with tech executives taking him up on his offers to visit the city.
And I actually came here over other cities I was considering just because I saw how active you were on Twitter, and I fully believe with how much effort you're pulling in. Someone wrote a tweet today saying how they saw you as an early entrepreneur working their ass off to be able to grow a unicorn company, and it does remind me of that. Miami is a city as a startup.
That's a huge compliment.
Venture capitalist Lucy Guo joined the Miami mayor for his Cafecito talks to discuss why she moved to Miami. Guo, featured a few years back on Forbes' 30 Under 30 list, co-founded an artificial intelligence startup now valued at $3.5 billion. These days, she runs her own venture capitalist firm, and Miami is her new base.
We communicate.
Mayor Suarez's Twitter campaign is paying off. He's become a darling of tech on Twitter and even got Elon Musk's attention. Their Twitter exchange last month led to a phone call and sales pitch. The tech mogul says he can build a 3+ kilometer tunnel under Miami to help ease its crazy traffic for a fraction of the price quoted by traditional contractors.
The order of magnitude in terms of savings is significant. We talked a lot about the Brickell Tunnel project, which was priced out at $1 billion, and he feels can be done much closer to $30 million. Obviously, without being able to sort of rely on that particular price point, that is what he believes is something like that can be done for, and it can be done in about 6 months.
Other tech companies with a presence in Miami have expanded their operations. Globant, an international IT and software development company, acquired Miami-based group ASA and is betting on the digital transformation of the Latin American market.
So I think Miami is in a great situation to become a tech hub, right? There's a lot of things happening at the same time. First, there's a lot of investment coming in, there's a lot of talent, and there's the will of the community to make it happen, right?
And one of the biggest attractions Miami holds for all these investors and tech executives is a tax advantage. Florida does not tax personal income at all, and corporate taxes are low. Perhaps the most decisive incentive to convince these tech types to trade the West Coast for the beach party here instead. Nitza Soledad Perez, CGTN, Miami.
And in Germany, the Berlin International Film Festival kicked off its virtual edition on Monday. The event is split into 2 parts due to coronavirus restrictions. Take a look.
The first part of this year's Berlin International Film Festival is an online event for the industry, with the jury choosing the winners. It's being held from March the 1st to the 5th. There are plans for a summer special to follow in June, at which the public will get a chance to see the winners and a selection of other films. That's when the award ceremony is to take place.
Every section will have its spot. We will have about 10-12 cinema partners all over the city who are also presenting the films, and we will work with a number of open-air cinemas. And I think it will be pretty good festival feeling, I can imagine. I assume we still have to do a lot of distancing and hygienic rules. I'm quite sure that we cannot just have the normal festival as we usually have it in February, but I think people will be happy to go out and see films on the big screen and meet the filmmakers.
The selection for the festival includes several German contributions and films from France, Romania, Hungary, Mexico, South Korea, and Japan. The summer edition of the festival will allow films to be screened to audiences in a COVID-safe environment.
Stepping out of a dark cinema into the bright sunlight is a different feeling from stepping out of the dark cinema into a cold Potsdamer Platz feeling. So I do think that will be a big difference. And at the same time, I guess it's also people can mingle freely outside. For us, it's the advantage that in times of the pandemic, you want to be outside and you want to talk to people, but you can do this much more easily when you're outside. And that's the big chance now to make that happen and to give people the opportunity to really see each other and talk to each other.
Opening the film festival this year is Maria Schrader's romantic comedy I'm Your Man, an exploration of the free will, compromise, and friction that true love needs. The film casts German stage star Maren Eggert with Downton Abbey star Dan Stevens as the robot a single woman agrees to spend 3 weeks with to fund her research. Lighthearted and relentlessly entertaining, the story unintentionally points up the limitations of this year's pandemic-compliant online-only format. Victor Ning, CGTN.
Well, let's shift focus now and take a look at commodity markets today. Oil prices were up. They were boosted by expectations that OPEC Plus producers might decide against increasing output when they meet this week. Also, signs of progress in the coronavirus vaccine rollout in the U.S. gave further support. According to traders, the fundamentals of the oil market suggest a further strength as oil demand grows with the recovery. Meanwhile, gold prices falling for a sixth session in 7 today as the expectation that U.S. Treasury yields will move higher on further economic stimulus kept non-yielding bullion under pressure. Well, we are heading into a short break. Do stay with us. We'll be right back.
Africa is a continent of diversity, with varied climates and enchanting geography, and a people so distinct, but with a shared enduring spirit. We are at the heart of the continent to bring you the untold stories.
Let's have a look.
We celebrate Africa as it shapes its own destiny.
Tunis, Cairo,
Juba,
Johannesburg, Ethiopia,
Tanzania. Africa Live. Find your voice.
Images may appear to be identical, but looks can be deceiving. The difference is not always obvious. It has to be discovered. There are always different sides to a story. We put the focus on the details. To see more, to understand better. CGTN. See the difference.
The greatest journeys. The greatest sights. The greatest adventures.
Here in Hainan, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival, and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
Now, South Africa's Department of Basic Education has confirmed that it plans to move ahead with the introduction of coding and robotics in all public schools across the nation. The department has spent $4 million on piloting the program. Here's Sumitra Naidu with more on this report.
The South African education system is characterized by crumbling infrastructure, overcrowded classrooms, and relatively poor educational outcomes. The Department of Basic Education wants to change this narrative.
The program of coding and robotics have long been in the making. So it's not anything new, it's that now we're able to roll it out. Because in our sector, training becomes very important, resourcing becomes very important, even budgeting. We worked with Microsoft and then we developed a curriculum, because that's the other major thing that we have to be able. We tested the curriculum, which we're still testing.
Coding has become popular with youngsters and is already being offered as a subject in some schools. These schools will be roped in to assist with the rollout in public schools.
Some schools have started running it on their own. They'd long started coding, and those were able to help us to develop the curriculum. So now that we have the curriculum, we're going to take it to Umalusi. We're starting off with the first 1,000 schools. We'd ask provinces to identify 100 schools that we're going to support, just to make sure that we are able to train more teachers, we're able to test the curriculum properly, and we're able to register the curriculum properly.
No new teachers will be hired for this rollout. Instead, existing teachers will be sent for training.
We are excited. We have an ICT committee that we have established. There's a training that is coming concerning robotic in this week workshop that that is going to take our teachers through. We want to start from grade R and grade 1. The world is moving forth industrial revolution, so we want even the little one in under a privileged environment to have ICT competency skills.
The department is still awaiting feedback from the education regulator, Umalusi, on the proposed curriculum for the subjects. Some schools are expected to be ready to take on this new program before mid-year. Sumitra Naidu, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
Now, despite the efforts by Kenya's government to provide education to all, people living in arid and semi-arid parts of the country still face difficulties in accessing learning. In Marsabit County, which is largely inhabited by herders who usually migrate in search of pasture, getting access to schooling remains a challenge. But one local teacher is trying to fill this gap in education provision in his own way. Here's CGTN Susan Wongeli, who was just there and brings us this report.
Every morning, teacher Boru Galgalo walks from one manyata to the next one, calling children to go to school. As the only teacher here, he has made it his mission to save the children from a life of illiteracy. Their families are pastoralists who often have to move around the region in search of pasture for their livestock. On many occasions, they relocate to remote areas where access to formal classroom is difficult. It is this situation that led Boru to set up a makeshift classroom that is mobile and can follow the families wherever they go.
We started the school under a shade. We got a little help from just well-wishers, a group of our own people who just donated for us.
Boru, who is a trained teacher, has enrolled 64 children in this classroom. He targets children between the ages of 3 and 6 years.
Due to their age, they are very young. They cannot be taken to any other boarding schools away from their family because still they cannot help themselves.
The rate of absenteeism is high, as some parents would rather have their children look after livestock. According to data released by the National Bureau of Statistics in 2018, Marsabit County had the poorest education indicators in Kenya.
There was a time, in fact, I went for the holiday, but when I came to open the school, in fact, I could not find him. I decided even to collect information from just the neighbors who have been around there, where they shooted. They said they have shooted us almost around 40 kilometers away from the roadside. So it forced me now even to go where they were now.
The current schooling structure they have is supported through donations and cannot meet the increasing demand brought about by more children wanting to join classes. Attempts to get another teacher to support Boru have also not been successful. But despite the challenges, Boru presses on.
You see, I volunteer myself. I might even, you see, even where to sleep sometimes can be a problem to me. Because that house that we live together with the other family, in fact, there is husband and wife there. So sometimes I even spend in the wilderness too, until the dawn comes.
With the effects of climate change hitting hard and the availability of pasture for livestock dwindling, these families are unlikely to stop migrating. And for them, the most pressing issue is how to transport the mobile structure with them.
This unit can only be dismantled and reassembled 1 or 2 times. By the third time, it breaks down completely. Therefore, we would request that well-wishers provide us with a portable classroom, one that has wheels so that we can drag it wherever we go.
It might not be the ideal situation, but through this mobile classroom, Teacher Boru is determined to give these children a good start in life and ensure that they stand a chance at education so that in future they may be the drivers of change for their community. I am Susan Mongeli for CGTN in Marsabit County, Kenya.
Well, before we leave you today, here's a quick look at Africa's currencies. South Africa's rand erasing earlier losses to trade up 0.4% today. That's as U.S. Treasury yields weakened and dulled the dollar. Meanwhile, Nigeria's naira crashed to record lows at the investor and exporters window as low dollar supply persists in the country. It is currently hovering at around 411 naira per dollar. That's a 3-month record low. Well, that's it for this edition of Global Business Africa. Remember, you can send your feedback to the contacts on your screen. You can also follow us on our various digital media platforms. From me, Uche Okoronkwo, and the rest of the team, thanks for watching.